Welcome to Real Estate Radio Live, an informative and engaging podcast discussing everything you need to know about the world of real estate. Your host, Joe Caccera, provides you with insight and guidance on how to buy, sell, finance, and invest in real estate. He also offers real estate tax management strategies, new construction advice, home improvement tips, and much, much more. And now, to guide you around the world of real estate, here's your host and Real Estate Radio Live team leader, Joe Caccera.
Welcome in, Joe Caccera with Real Estate Radio Live, the podcast series, as we kick off the week. Hope everybody's prepared to have a great week. Just a reminder, for more information, you can always go to reradiolive.com. For 7 years, we have been doing the radio and now podcasting. Excited to announce later on this month, you may have seen it on social media and some of the information that's going out. We are getting the live radio show back, so stay tuned for that. We're very, very excited. What that's going to mean is that the podcast will really end up being the content coming from the live radio. So you could tune into the live radio Monday through Friday from 3 to 4 p.m. Pacific Daylight Time, and that is at KDOW 1220 a.m. There'll be more information coming out with that as well. We're very, very excited to be back live on the radio. In the next couple of weeks, we'll provide you with more information. Before we get started on our topic today, just a reminder, if you need any purchase financing, maybe you need to get pre-approved, maybe you need a good realtor, financial planner, CPA, any kind of advice you need in and around real estate, we have a great network of professionals here to help you. Reach out, let us know a couple different ways you can reach me. Call or text 408-838-9060, or you could always email joe at reradiolive.com. All right, today I thought it was noteworthy to talk about this Equifax fiasco that took place a couple of days ago. And I'm going to dive into it. It's really frustrating on a couple levels for me, not only as a consumer, like most of you listening to this show, but even more frustrating to me. I wanted to report on this right away, and I'll do a couple of different shows on it. And that is, the reason why is I'm in the industry. I am in this industry of residential financing, so I deal with credit report bureaus every single day when we pull credit. I deal with these groups when we have disputes. I deal with these groups when we have people trying to figure out why things are showing up on their credit. And I could tell you flat out, in my opinion, sometimes you just need to call it the way it is. This is as close to a legalized scam as you could get, this credit reporting agencies. It really is. It's a money grab, the way they operate this thing. It needs to be broken up, in my opinion, reorganized, set up so that's the benefit of the consumer. There is so much money these agencies are making, these bureaus are making from pulling credit scores and all the different reasons. Anytime you do something, they charge you a fee. And then when you have something on your credit report that you want to try to get off, it takes you months and extreme frustration to try to get any results from these people that are collecting billions of dollars a year. So then they have a security breach, which again, by itself, I'm not picking on them because they've had a security breach, because other companies have had this. The reason why it's frustrating is when you really look under the hood and you figure out what took place, is that apparently the reports show that they knew about this back in May. That's right. Here we are sitting in September. The reports show that they knew about this hack back in May and didn't say anything about it, didn't do anything about it. And then on top of that, again, this is what the speculation is. This is what the reports are saying. I can't confirm that it's true or not, but on top of the fact that they knew about it several months ago and didn't let people know, which is extremely dangerous to your personal credit and personal information. But then apparently some senior executives in the company sold a bunch of stock right about the same time, which is very suspicious. Again, I don't know that this is true. This is what we're reporting. This is what we're reading. I would guess in the next weeks or the months to come, we'll have more details behind this. So what makes this troubling is that, number one, they waited so long to let people know. And the reason why this is troubling is, think about it, approximately 143 million U.S. consumers were affected by this. 143 million. Security breach, information breach. They say that it could be full name, Social Security number, driver's license, address, places of employment, things like that. They say, who really knows what they have access to? And again, I'll state that it's not so much, first of all, a company this size, it's unnerving that they had a security breach of this extent of $143 million. That in itself is not good. But it has happened to other companies. So that's one part of this conversation. The other part of the conversation, which to me is the part that needs to be focused on, the consumer should be aware of, is that, one, the allegation is they knew back in May about this and they didn't report it to anybody. If that's true, that is terrible. And two, around the same time, they had senior executives that sold off a bunch of stock about the same time. Those two things right there, if those come to be true, these people should be under scrutiny, and hopefully there'll be some lawsuits and there'll be some strict action taken against them. Now, the reason I want to really focus on this a little bit is that I work with these bureaus every single day, as I mentioned when I started the show today. It's extremely frustrating. If anybody has gone through this, you know what I'm talking about. I must have gotten 15 to 20 calls over the last couple of days. Joe, what should I do? I'm in the middle of a loan. I'm about ready to get a loan. I'm nervous about this. And so what I did on purpose is over the weekend, I myself went through this exercise. I went to the link that said Equifax, report here, click on this link, go through the steps. I filled out some information. So they have you fill out a bit of information. And then it comes back and says, there is a chance that your information could have been breached or, something like that. So go to the next step, call this number. So first of all, this was Friday afternoon around 5 o'clock my time. I called the number and it said that, first of all, it said in the information they were open till, they were taking calls till, I don't know, midnight or 1 in the morning. And that wasn't the case because the voicemail I received said that you must be calling in a time when no one's available to take your call. So I couldn't reach anybody. So then the next morning I got on the phone again, and then I waited on the phone for probably 45 minutes before someone finally came on. And then when the person finally came on, I found out that they have nothing to do with Equifax. My point is, it wasn't an Equifax employee. It wasn't a representative. They said, I just need to let you know, they said something like this to me, or we're here to field phone calls and give you so much information, but we don't know if there's been a security breach for your personal information. There's nothing really we could do for you. What we're here to do is answer calls and just tell you where to go and where to be directed. I mean, how ridiculous is that? How ridiculous is that? Here's a company that makes billions of dollars, and they had to contract a group out to field phone calls and then tell you after you sit on the phone for 45 minutes that we can't help you. We're here just to let you know this is where you could go for your information. Well, some people might say, oh, well, that's great. At least they did something. No, they didn't. They need to do something more. This is people's personal, private information. If you're familiar with identity theft, it is big and is continuing to grow. And the reason why is because we have just as many people that are super, super smart using technology for good reasons. We have just as many people that are super, super smart that are using technology for bad reasons. And what that means is security is a huge part of this business, and it won't change. Identity theft is incredibly high. It keeps growing. And as much as we do to try to protect ourselves, it's really difficult. So what do you do about it? If you're one of the people affected, I'm getting a lot of calls and emails. I would suggest that you put a freeze on your credit. You could do that by contacting Equifax. Probably best to go to the website. Believe me, if you try to call, I'm not sure who you'll get through to, A, and B, if you do get through to someone, if it's going to be anybody that could help you. So if I were you, if you were concerned, if you think you were affected, the best thing is to put a freeze on your credit. You could do that by contacting the bureaus, put in a freeze. And then the good news about that is anytime someone tries to access your credit, nothing, you're protected. Now, the downside to that, just need to know that when you put a freeze on your credit, if you go to buy something, open a credit card, get a mortgage loan, do anything that requires pulling your credit, what will happen is the vendor or the company that's pulling your credit, let's say you're going to get an automobile, lease an automobile, and they pull your credit, they'll show that there's a freeze on it. So you will need to contact the bureaus and give them the authorization to unfreeze your credit temporarily until they pull your credit. Once the company who's ever accessing your credit with your authorization pulls your credit, then you have to go back on and put the freeze back on until you find out what's going on. Here's the frustrating part is I think it's going to be months and maybe even years before we even know what happened. And then how do you know if your information's been used? How do you know if it's, like for instance mine, the feedback that I got from their website said that there's a chance that it could have been compromised. But I still haven't been able to confirm whether it was or not. I'm not sure if many other people are in that same boat. I happen to be, we have 20, 30 plus loans on our pipeline at one given time, just myself. And I've had 2 clients now that said they've been affected, and now it's going to affect. What we're going to have to do is keep an eye on that while they, in the midst of closing their purchase and their refinance, to make sure everything's going to be okay with their credit. So if you want more information about this, you need to go to Equifax.com. You could go to the government reporting agency too. If you go to the government site on identity theft, you could get some information. It's really difficult to navigate and understand. And I would suggest that the best thing you could do is go to the website, and if you're concerned about it or if you think there's a chance that it could have been a security breach on your personal information, I would put the freeze on your credit immediately until we could all figure out what's going on here. All right, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, I'm going to continue talking about, again, the Equifax reports the data breach possibly affecting over 143 million people in the U.S. I thought it was important that I jump in and do this podcast today just to get the information out to people and really express my personal frustration, but also as an industry, I work in this, and it's very, very frustrating. All right, when we come back, we're going to continue this conversation. This is Joe Kuchera with Real Estate Radio Live, the podcast series. We'll be back with you to continue in just a minute.
For more information on today's program, visit reradiolive.com. That's reradiolive.com.
Hi, this is Joe Kuchera of Real Estate Radio Live. Thanks for tuning into our podcast. We are your go-to resource for all aspects of real estate, including buying, selling, refinancing, building, and legal and tax advice, and much more. You can subscribe to Real Estate Radio Live podcast on iTunes and Stitcher to listen to an engaging discussion about anything and everything real estate. So make sure you get our app, RE Radio Live, in the iTunes store to follow the show.
Welcome back to Real Estate Radio Live. For more information on today's topic or guests, just visit reradiolive.com. That's reradiolive.com. Again, your host for today's edition of Real Estate Radio Live, Joe Kuchera.
Welcome back. Joe Kuchera with Real Estate Radio Live, the podcast series. As we kick off the week, the topic today is you've probably heard it in the news, Equifax reports there was a data breach, possibly affecting 143 million people or consumers in the United States. And it's, I would suggest that everybody, because this is a big number, everybody go to Equifax website, find out if you've been affected. I could tell you it's extremely difficult to get through to anybody. If you're concerned about it, my recommendation would be put a freeze on your credit right away if you don't need your credit. And then if you do need your credit for some reason, then you'll have to unfreeze it. I don't know how long this is going to take. I mentioned the first segment that I was personally affected, it seems like, as well. I don't know yet because it's impossible to get information from these people. Here's what's ironic about this, and I'll go on a bit of a rant maybe. What's ironic is these are organizations and bureaus to protect your private personal information. Right? To protect your private, personal information. Now, if you're a toy store, if you're a Safeway, if you're a Whole Foods, if you're a place that you serve millions of people and you cut hair, or a restaurant, or my point is if you have databases of people that don't have personal information in it. Let's say there's someone that has millions of data in their database, but it's a restaurant or it's a department store. It's something they don't have Social Security numbers. They don't have driver's license numbers. They don't have they just have maybe your name and an email, maybe, okay? Maybe an address, but typically a name and an email. Not so bad then, right? I mean, it's okay, someone has your name and maybe an email, that's bad enough. The part that's really frustrating to me, and again, I'm in this business, so maybe because I deal with these people on a regular basis, I get more frustrated because it's a huge bureaucracy. It's a nightmare to deal with these credit reporting agencies, and it's part of our business. Every time we do a loan, we have to pull credit. And every time we pull credit, the consumer pays. Every time we pull credit, there's something on our credit report. I could always tell you 90% of people say, gosh, I didn't know this was on my credit. And then they try to investigate it, or whether with us or someone else, and we can't. So then they take, it's extremely difficult to get any information about your personal information, if that makes sense. So the reason why this is doubly upsetting is this is arguably, think about it. Now just think about this. This is arguably this should be the most secure information on the face of the earth, maybe other than, top security with the NSA and all these other stuff with the government and military. You can make an argument that that's extremely important, a lot more important than this. But secondly, probably close behind it, think about it, your credit reporting bureaus. Credit reporting bureaus have every bit of your personal information available, including the credit card companies, the mortgage companies, your loan numbers, your Social Security numbers, your date of birth, address, all that stuff. Don't you think they would be the most responsible when it comes to security? Don't you think they would spend the most money behind the scenes trying to protect that data? I'm not saying they didn't. I don't know enough about it. But when you look at the list, I'm going to run through the list real quick for you of the top 10 breaches over the last several years and some of the companies that were involved and how they rank. So in 2016, Yahoo apparently had a breach of over 1 billion or approximately 1 billion customers. In 2016, twice, Yahoo had another incident apparently where they had 500 million. Now, those are big, big numbers. I'm not trying to sidestep and say that that's okay and it's not a big deal, but typically, if you have someone's email, I don't know what other personal information's in there unless if you send personal information through your email, then that could be a problem. But getting your email and your name is, of course, we don't want to do that. But if someone breaches security and somehow gets your email and your name, it's not the end of the world. Now, if someone breaches your personal information, security, and gets your Social Security number, your driver's license, and things like that, absolutely, that's really, really serious. Okay? So let's go through this list. Yahoo is the biggest. 2009, Heartland Payment Services, they had about 130 million. LinkedIn had 117 million in 16. Sony had about 100 million in 2011. Anthem, of course, I'm sure they're thinking that's probably Anthem Blue Cross. They had 80 million in 2015. That could be very serious because this is your medical information that certainly does have Social Security numbers and a lot of personal information in it. So that would be a big serious one. That's 80 million in 2015. JP Morgan had a 76 million breach in 2014. That, again, is a big one because this is your personal finances, and most likely they have a lot of your personal information, including your Social Security number and much more assets. And that was in 2014. Target, again in 2013. I gave you an example, and then Home Depot, 56 million in 2014. So let's use Home Depot and Target as some examples. Too bad it happened. I don't know how it happened, but this is an example. If Target and Home Depot got breached, I don't know what the extent of that information was, but if it's breached and what they have is your email and maybe your name, I don't know what else involved. It's bad, but it's not really going to be a game changer in terms of what it could mean for your personal identity. But when you have a Blue Anthem, when you have a Equifax, when you have someone that has personal private information that could be accessed, that is not good and not good at all. So out of this list, the point I'm making here, out of this list, when you look at it, it's really Equifax and maybe Blue Cross Anthem. You could argue that, probably some extreme private personal information that was accessed through that. And believe me, I'm not picking on Equifax. What I'm doing is reporting the news like I've done for the last 7 years on stuff that happens that's wonderful, stuff that happens that's good, and stuff that happens that's not so good. And it deserves to be reported. Consumers have the right. And again, before I close out on this, I would say that it's bad enough that Equifax had a security breach of nearly $143 million approximately. The part that I think that upsets people the most, and it should, and the part that upsets me the most, and it could be a little more frustrating to me because I work with these people day in and day out, and I know that even on good days they do a terrible job, and yet they're taking the consumer's money, billions by the year. The credit report, the whole thing needs to be broken up and changed. That's another story. So the part that is frustrating to most people out there today about Equifax is that apparently, again, they knew about this months earlier. There's some that say May, June, July. I don't know what the dates are. There's reports all over the place that suggest that Equifax knew about this breach at least 2 to 3 months ago. Whether it was June, July, I don't know. But let's just say it was 2 or 3 months ago. That's not good. You have a responsibility as a company the minute this information, when you realize that this kind of personal information has been breached and 143 million consumers have been affected, you have a responsibility to report that immediately, to give people an opportunity to react on behalf of their own personal information. The fact that they didn't do that, I don't know when the investigation takes place what's going to happen. Hopefully they can figure that out. But that's not good. The second thing, I'll repeat, that's not good is that apparently right after this was found out, several executives sold off a bunch of stock. And again, I'm not making accusations. We don't know until the reports come out. But that is not good if that's true. And most of you know why. I don't have to explain that. We've had these situations before when major public companies have mishaps and some executives think, oh, well, once this hits the news, it's going to affect my personal income. What a shame. Again, I don't know if this is right or wrong, but the fact that they would sell off stock to try to have personal gain and protect themselves versus the consumer is disgusting to me, and I hope that it turns out that that's not the case, but that's what's being reported. They'll find out as this investigation gets underway for sure. Again, before I close out, the breach with Equifax, it affects a lot of people's credit. Gosh, it's nearly probably at least an eighth of the United States in total. If you think you've been affected, I would encourage everybody to go to the website, figure it out. There's some information you could fill out. The response that you get back, in my experience, is that there's a possibility your information has been breached. And then it takes you through some steps of which could be very frustrating. I would suggest, again, if this happened to you or you think it may have happened to you, to go in and freeze your credit, and then let's see how this thing shakes out, what happens. Let's see what comes out of this. I don't know where this information went to, whose hands it dropped into. I have no idea. We're going to find out more over the next couple of months probably. But I would, to protect yourself personally, go to Equifax website, freeze your credit, and then if you need your credit, just be aware that you will have to unfreeze it temporarily until you do the transaction of who you're working with, and then I would go back and freeze the credit. All right, we're running out of time today. Again, this is Joe Kuchera with Real Estate Radio Live. We're excited to have the live radio show coming back in the next couple of weeks. Stay tuned for that. That will be Monday through Friday from 3 to 4 Pacific Daylight Time on KDOW 1220 AM. They're the Wall Street Business Network leader. This is Joe Kuchera with Real Estate Radio Live. Until next time, take care.
You've been listening to Real Estate Radio Live. For more information on today's program, visit reradiolive.com. That's RERadiolive.com. Subscribe to our podcast. Discover more at RERadiolive.com.